What I'd like to do with you today is basically give a little bit of the context and outline of what is happening in global food security, what are the main challenges, and afterwards say how in FAO we are organizing to face these new challenges. We will look at the global situation of global food insecurity, and then we will see some of the ways in which we're responding. Can I have the next one, please? So, we have huge challenges, and not least of them is that by 2050, world population is going to grow up to around, we calculate, 9.1 billion people. And in order to feed these people, we need to increase agricultural production by more or less 60%. 60% increase in production from what we have today. This means that we have to increase yields, we have to increase cultivated lands, and also, very importantly, we need to increase investments in agriculture. Can I have the next one, please? Thanks. So we have identified 11 main big challenges that we have to face in order to address problems of food insecurity here in the next years up to 2050. Now, as I just said, food consumption systems are changing. As world incomes increase, there's going to be a change in demand of the kind of food, not only the quantity, but also the kind of food. And we are expecting an increase of demand for livestock products, meats, oil, vegetable oils, and also sugar. There's also going to be increasing demand on natural resources. Of course, this is not new, but we expect that that demand is going to be very much intensified, and competition will be intensified, not only because natural resources will be diminishing in available natural resources in quantity, but also in quality. We also are going to be facing huge demands, increasing demands in energy. And we are expecting that energy demand worldwide is going to be increasing in around by about a third from here to 2035. I'm going this way. There's also a big trend in terms of food prices. As you know, we have been facing increases, and sometimes very fast, sharp increases in food prices, and also in volatility. And that is going to remain an issue in the future. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in another slide. Agro systems have been changing. And very specifically, we are seeing increasing vertical integration throughout the development of global value chains. We are also seeing an evolution of trade policies, especially due to changing modes of doing trade, and also in the terms of the volume of trade that is happening worldwide at a global scale. Climate change, of course, that is not new, but we see that the impact of climate change on agriculture and, of course, of food security is going to be changing dramatically in the next few years. In terms of technology and science, we see an increased role of the private sector in technology and science. We know how fundamental that is for increases in productivity, and the processes, the importance of the private sector is increasing in that sense. Within the development context, we also see an increased importance attributed to governance, good governance, and also participation of all the different actors, and that is good news. However, we see that we can expect increased crisis due to different kinds of natural phenomena, but also conflict in the next few years. So increased vulnerability due to crises which are either man-made or not. And finally, rural poverty. We have seen good, important improvements in diminishing rural poverty, but rural poverty is still huge and is still a matter of big concern. Now, regarding food prices, we all remember the crisis that started in the year of 2007, 2008. If you look at what happened at that time, you will see this is the FAO This is the FAO Food Price Index, the evolution from 1990 all the way up to 2013. And you see that in the years 2007 and 8, we had huge nominal spikes in food prices, and again back in the year 10 and 11. Now, according to our FAO estimates, food prices are going to be remaining high for the next years to come, but hopefully we don't expect as much volatility in these prices because we already have stocks that have been replenished at worldwide level. We're comfortable with that, but of course we cannot foresee if there's going to be major weather changes. However, the reality is food prices have been affecting the smallholders more than the large holders, the small producers in small countries or in poorer countries more than in richer countries. And that is going to be here to stay. Now let us see the evolution of hunger throughout the different years. We will start in year 1970, 1980, 90, year 2000, 2002, 3, and then the situation currently, or almost currently, in year 2010. So what you see throughout these years is an evolution of many regions in the world have been able to face problems of food insecurity. However, the problem is very much persistent and concentrated mostly in sub-Saharan Africa and other regions of the world. Now, according to our latest figures that are, some of you may have had the chance to pick up the executive summary of the state of food and insecurity, which was out in front of the room. In any case, you can find all these data very easily on the website, in the FAO website. But what we have seen throughout the years is that the world has been able to make hunger numbers decrease. However, not enough. If you see here in this graph, we see just last year, our state of food and insecurity in the world told us that there were around 878 million people around the world who are undernourished. This year, our figures show that the number has gone down to 842 million around the world. What does this mean? This means that the trends are going in the right direction, but it means that the level is unacceptably high. 842 million people is around 12% of global population, which is more or less 1 out of 8 people in the world are still suffering from hunger, be it chronic or other forms. Now, in terms of the World Food Summit target and the MDG, the Millennium Development Goal target, we see different evolutions, because these two indices are of a different nature. In 1996, when governments congregated in Rome and discussed hunger issues in the World Food Summit, they fixed a target that we were to cut by half the number of undernourished people by 2015. A couple of years later, the nations united in New York and agreed on the Millennium Development Goals in year 2000. And they agreed that by the year 2015, the proportion of hungry people should be cut in half. Now, where are we in terms of these two different indices, and why are they different? Now, the World Food Summit target, World Food Summit target, maybe I can ask people to give me get ahead. So World Food Summit target, which is about the proportion of people, one more please. Okay, so the one on the top here is here we go. The one in the top is the World Food Summit target, which in order to meet it, the number of hungry people should go down to 498 people by 2015. So the number of hungry people down by that amount by 2015, just in 2 years, that is probably unreachable. However, there is very good progress in terms of the MDG, the Millennium Development Goal number 1, which is about cutting in half the proportion of hungry people. And here we see that that MDG is probably going to be met. Actually, just this past June in Rome, we celebrated 38 countries around the world who had already met it. And from here until 2015, we expect an additional number of countries, by which time 62 countries will have met their MDG number 1. Very good news. However, the bad news is that both targets are about cutting in half. And regarding hunger, the only acceptable number is 0. So from going into cutting by half either the number or the proportion until reaching the 0 hunger target, which we all want, we have a very, very long way to go. Now, progress has been made in almost all regions, but at very, very different rates. Here you see that Eastern Asia, basically, and Southeastern Asia have been making fantastic progress in terms of reducing the proportion of people who are hungry. However, other regions which are most affected, and in particular Africa, have been making progress, yes, important progress, yes, but much less than other regions. Now, food security, we tend to express food security and think many times that this is about food production. Yes, food production is one important part. However, today in the world, there is enough food being produced for every single human being, and yet we have 842 million people who are hungry. So it's not only about food production. Very importantly, it's about access. We have been good in making progress in increasing food production, but we have not been as good in making progress in access, effective demand, which is basically talking about people's incomes, which will allow them to buy the food they need. So effective demand, poverty, is way behind. Food production, and we believe that even that 60% additional that we have to achieve in order to feed the world in 2050, the world is able to produce that, to increase in that amount. However, even today, we're able to produce enough, but we have millions who go hungry every day. Now, let us look a little bit about what FAO is doing in response to these global challenges. One, we identified these 11 global challenges, and according to those global challenges, we set for ourselves an agenda for the next years, which has 5 strategic objectives. First one of them, very important, is to contribute to eliminate hunger from the world. All of these objectives, of course, are not for FAO. It's not an organization like ours that is going to solve the problems of hunger in the world. It is for the member countries, in collaboration with all of the different stakeholders. So first objective is about eliminating hunger sustainably. Second objective is about increasing food production, but in a sustainable way. So basically, we are looking at issues of environment at the same time as we are looking to issues of increased production. Third one is about reducing rural poverty. Fourth one is about inclusive and efficient agricultural food systems and value chains. And finally, reduce vulnerability to shocks and crisis, which means basically increasing resilience embedded at the community level, at the international level, to face any kind of shocks and crises that can come up. Now, I'd just like to make a point that cooperatives are essential in every one of these strategic objectives. And FAO is addressing cooperatives embedded in this new strategic framework throughout each one of those strategic objectives. We know that we cannot do it alone, and obviously it's not an organization, even if we have worldwide presence, it's not an organization of 3,000 people who is going to reach these goals. It is our support to the member countries, but it's very specifically the strategic support throughout bringing together all of the different actors, and it means the state actors, but very importantly the non-state actors, including, for us, basically it is organizations of civil society, it's the private sector, within the private sector, cooperatives and producer organizations, but because of their tremendous relevance to all of the aspects of the strategic framework, we address cooperatives as in a separate category, and finally, research institutions and organizations. So we're developing innovative partnerships whereby we join forces and bring in what the partnerships can provide, which is about innovative ideas, innovative ways of doing things, innovative ways of organizing in order to provide a solution to the problems that we outlined. Now, in a nutshell, basically, we are making progress in reducing hunger. However, hunger stays at an unacceptably high level. We are moving very significantly, making good progress towards the Millennium Development Objective, MDG 1, but we're still staying quite behind in terms of the World Food Summit targets. And basically, we are not there to do it alone. We are there to do it through partners like yourselves here in this room. And we are seeing within FAO that organized collective action is a main way of addressing all of the challenges that I outlined earlier. Thank you very much.